Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome to episode 97 of the Batman on Film Social Hour podcast. I am the host of this Batman on Film show, Bill Ramey. And I also, Garret Grev, senior BOF contributor. Did I ever tell you the story of how I started Batman on Film in 1998 on a web TV? Have I ever told you that story? I haven't told that story often.
Not only have I been told that story, I was reading BOF
Yes.
back when it was Jet D's Batman 5 tripod page.
Jet D60's Batman 5 page, yes.
There
on
it is.
tripod, yes, sir.
It was one of the first websites I found and began visiting near religiously. I mean, religiously every day. I didn't go to church every day, but I went to that page every day, just desperate to find out if we were ever going to get a sequel. And I think when I found it, it was right when you had transitioned off the web TV. Maybe it was in the process of, it would have been like fall of 2000. So it might have been just after the transition. But
That's about right. Yeah, that's about
and then
right. on the spot.
I remember the transition from that page name to Batman on Film. And I had, for the longest time, because it was like before, I don't know how to bookmark things or anything.
Yeah.
So I would type out the address every time. And I'd like remember, okay, there's dashes and it's on film, not online. And that helped me remember that it's Batman-on-film. And I still say that today when I host shows and I tell people where to check things out. It's always Batman-on-film.com.
This will age both
I've heard
of
the
us.
story.
Yes, it's going to age both of us. The fact that Batman on Film will be 25.
I can't believe it. I've got I was going through Vikings, big Vikings fan. If anyone, doesn't know that about me by now, well, welcome. And I've got the Batman on Film 20th anniversary that I got in purple and gold as also a Vikings t-shirt. So that gets worn on game days sometimes. And I was just looking at that the other day. I'm like, this was almost 5 years ago already. Did I buy this shirt 5 years ago? Has it really been that long? Like, the years got to slow down, which also ages you, because that's such an old man thing to say, right? Where does the time go?
I have many people of your vintage, a little older, a little younger, who have emailed me a lot from time to time and say, I've been with you since Jet D60's Batman 5 page, and I was a kid, and now I have a family, and I've been working for 20 years or whatever. So
I tried sending you what I thought was an inside tip years ago. I don't even know if we've ever talked about this. I went to college with somebody who grew up with a celebrity who I probably shouldn't name, is a famous actress married to a famous musician. And she had heard, because she knew I was a huge Batman fan, that this friend of hers told her Ryan Gosling was in consideration for the Joker at one point. And I emailed you and you asked me, you replied back and you asked where I heard it. And then I just didn't say anything. So I was too scared to name who the celebrity was. Okay. And then of course, I ended up either not being true or not working out one way or the other.
Yeah, might just not have happened. So for sure.
And we ended up with the legendary Heath Ledger. That was the early time frame. It was right post Begins.
Okay.
Is when I had heard that tidbit.
I am sure that I know that Chris Nolan, Chris wanted to work with Heath quite a bit, and he was kind of his go-to guy for that role, but I'm sure there were others they thought about.
Studio names or whatever else.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we'll get going here. I wanted you to be on this show specifically because you are like me. You're a fan of the graphic novel Kingdom Come.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Kingdom Come actually
yeah,
pulled me into what became my era of buying trades after not buying single issues for a few years, end of high school and beginning
yeah.
of college. I picked up Kingdom Come, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can just do this. I'll just buy these collected editions. And it was so good. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
really got me back
Yeah.
in.
Did you talk about this with Lauer?
Yeah, Lauer and I did a
Okay.
Kingdom Come episode on the Batman Book Club. And,
Yes.
Lauer's a stickler for his rules on that show. It has to be Batman
Yeah.
centric. And I was like, trust me, it's a lot of Batman in here. People think about it as a Superman story, but Batman plays a pretty integral role. Of course, it's essentially a love letter to the entire DC universe, but
Mhm.
Batman and Superman are right out the forefront. Wonder Woman, of course, and Captain Marvel, because it is Captain Marvel. But yes, we did cover that. I want to say that was 2021. We did a show
Okay.
on Kingdom Come.
Yes. I knew you are probably a little bit more of an expert at Kingdom Come than I am. I've read it several times. It's one of my favorite graphic novels, and that says a lot for me because I'm not a Justice League guy, and I'm not really a team up guy. But there was something about this one that I really, really liked and really resonated with me. But we're going to talk about Kingdom Come specifically in a certain way in just a second. But just a little bit of news I want to bring up: the Illuminati, which I don't source many websites unless they're a trade, right? Unless I trust someone. And I can say that I believe they are legit, and that is why I use them in this latest Batman on Film story, which is really their story that they broke. That and the Penguin, the HBO Max series that will be coming, set in the Batman universe, featuring Colin Farrell as the Penguin, Oz Cobblepot. They have some casting. Well, not they have casting news about roles they're seeking actors for. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And
not breaking a news that someone's been casted, but here's a role that they're looking for someone for.
But according to them, mob boss Salvatore Maroni will be a character in the Penguin. And I don't know about you, and I'm sure, well, I do. That doesn't surprise anybody at Batman on Film, I don't think, because we talked about it amongst us that it makes a lot of sense, right? For Maroni to be in this.
Absolutely. It makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. You can start making connections. Of course, I try to not write the projects. At least I've grown to learn to not try to write these projects before the writers and creatives actually have a chance to. My mind immediately goes to Harvey Dent. Is that a possibility because of the connection there? But just the mob nature, even if it doesn't move in that DA front, new DA taking over and going after, the connection to the Batman and the characters there, and how much of a mob, organized crime interaction with the police, the power vacuum, Penguins moving in to have an antagonist that would make sense from the source material fits in perfectly.
And the fact that his conviction was a ruse,
right?
Essentially.
It would make sense that this guy's getting out of jail.
Yes, maybe not a ruse is the right word, but there were some illegal shenanigans.
Yes, it would likely to be overturned based on what we learned through the course of the Batman.
Yes, exactly. And so Maroni will be in it. They already have Sophia Falcone. Kristen Milioti will play her.
And Peter gave that casting a full approval. So you get the Italian to say, this is good stuff for Gigante.
And some other characters that will be in it will be Eve, who is a sex worker in her 50s who doesn't take crap from anyone. She will be an ally of Oz Cobblepot. Nick is a 30-year-old man who is employed at a plant controlled by the Penguin. And Dr. Ruben De Soto, an unethical doctor in his 40s. As well as, we can get to that in just a second if you want to talk about that. Alberto Falcone will be in it, as well as Johnny Vitti and Milos Garapa from the comics will be assisting Sophia in trying to secure the power of the Falcone family. So there you have
a lot
that.
of names that are familiar with anyone who's read The Long Halloween, which has been lauded to the ends of the earth by Team BOF, and particularly Ryan Lauer. I know it's his absolute favorite Batman story, but a lot of these characters should be familiar to readers of the books, particularly the books that focus on Batman and organized crime. I mean, it sounds like, obviously they need to cast them correctly, but it's going to be hard to go wrong with this cast of characters themselves in this world.
Yeah.
And then, the infusion, sort of the fresh element. So it's not just, hey, what have I seen on page? Now I get to watch it in live action, because that's not all that exciting, right? But getting Penguin in the mix, because Penguin, does not have a super deep history of interacting closely with most of these characters. So having this version of Oswald in the mix in that world is going to be very fresh, even if the names are very familiar.
Yes. The Illuminati speculates, and they made a point saying this is just pure speculation. This is nothing that we know, that maybe this Dr. Ruben de Soto could be just a fake character name for Dr. Hugo Strange.
Yeah, of course.
So,
that's where the name goes. That's where my mind goes. And we've got a history with Reeves saying he's casting a role, but that's not really the role, right? Like
Stanley Merkel.
Yes, there we go. Stanley. That's what I was searching for.
So we shall see. I would figure that maybe Hugo Strange would be more likely to show up in the Arkham series, but who knows? We'll see.
And
so go ahead.
With the freedom they seem to be giving Reeves to build out the Batman universe, it would not be unexpected to see an element introduced and then spun off, right? Like, this is a pretty broad web now that he's weaving here between the movies and the various TV projects. So, potentially, right, that could be absolutely something that still happens, where you get a glimpse of who turns out to be Hugo Strange in this series, and then ends up being more of a major figure over in the Arkham project. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. It'll really be something if this turns out to be like Boardwalk Empire, the Soprano level type HBO crime drama production, man. And it's set in the Bat world of Batman would be just unbelievable. And I'm looking forward to it tremendously.
I think if you go that route too, you've got a huge opportunity here to kind of capture the HBO prestige television audience that show up for HBO projects because they're done so well for the most part, in addition to the dedicated fan base that would show up for a Batman project regardless, right? Like, this is a real audience building opportunity. If you need to build the audience bigger than it is already, right? Because it's pretty dedicated and expansive to begin with.
For sure. All right. So before we get into talking about Kingdom Come, and if you're probably thinking, why are they going to talk about Kingdom Come? Well, we're going to tell you that in just a second. But first, let's have a word from one of our sponsors. All right, Garrett. James Gunn is one of the bosses of DC Studios.
Absolutely.
That's what it's called now. And he's very interactive on social media.
Oh my gosh, is he ever? I feel bad for the guy. I threw up a tweet the other day. I'm like,
yes, I saw it.
Can you guys please stop tweeting directly at James Gunn? Like, it's getting embarrassing. Like, like, I see these fans, I'm like, every little thing. And some clown that doesn't know how to read what our mailbags are, your mailbags are, took an excerpt of that and tweeted at him. Like, oh, come on, people. Just let the guy do his job. Like, I love that he's interactive. I just don't want anyone to scare him off, right? To be like, enough's enough. I'm sick of these wackos.
I'm like, I responded and said, do you understand? This is just my opinion.
Right.
That's all it is.
Old scooper Bill Ramey is at it again, right? I'm like, read the website, man. It's not a scoop site. It hasn't been a scoop site forever.
Yeah. The stuff I do know, I don't put on Batman on film. Now, sure as I'm going to tell, well, not you, Garrett, but you
Right.
on you Twitterverse individuals. So James Gunn tweeted out a picture from Kingdom Come of the Justice League, essentially Superman in the center, looking over like plans, and then with the quote, "Making plans" was all he wrote in the tweet.
Right.
And that, of course, that led to just retweets. And then speaking of the questions, responded to him asking him what the deal was. And I, even myself, I retweeted and said, and I let me preface by saying, I don't think it means anything specifically, but this is going to be fun to talk about. But I just said, if this new DC universe they're creating is kind of based on Kingdom Come loosely, and they kind of go that route, I'd be all in on this. So let's speculate. Garrett, what's your take? Could they, because Gunn has said they want to come up with, this overall overreaching story. I can't see them doing Darkseid again, even though Darkseid did not come to Earth in
either version of Justice League.
Yes. But there's a bit of, okay, been there, done that. Why am I going to do that again? Plus, you've got the whole Marvel Infinity Saga with their version of Darkseid, Thanos.
Right, Thanos.
So you got to do something different. And what kind of overarching story could they come up with? I think Kingdom Come, you could do something with that. No?
I think so because one, it is as beloved and revered as it is among those in the know, right? Comic book readers know this story, love this story, highly regarded, critical praise, but it is not something that the general audience is likely incredibly familiar with, right? So
yes,
you can take elements of this, use it as a foundation to build stories around, and have it be new and fresh for the vast majority of your audience. Have the dedicated core audience that already is into this kind of pick up on the feel from it, and have that be a cool thing for both groups, right? And then beyond that, thematically, the elements involved in this story could be really intriguing to tell, and it keeps a lot of the interaction based on heroes that we know and are established in creating potential conflicts and potential resolutions without having to introduce this otherworldly, hey, here's your sort of MacGuffin villain that you're going to fill in, establish quickly, try to give them a backstory, and then have them represent this immense superpower that could destroy the world once again. And that's what you need to pull together for. It's sort of the internal conflicts that can spin a lot of really great opportunities for storytelling that I think would be one of the more exciting elements if they were to proceed in this direction.
You got Lex Luthor, who is a major villain in this.
Yep.
You've got the whole thing with the original DC heroes are older, and this new, second, third, fourth generation that sprung off from them aren't the kind of heroes they were,
right?
If you will,
right?
And I think that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I think that gives you the opportunity, in some ways. A lot of people won't like this, but whatever, to reframe the way you portray these characters to represent what they have been for the majority of their history, in which different stars and directors, I shouldn't say directors recently, but for sure stars have said a return to hope and optimism. That's a lot of what Kingdom Come is about. It's pushing back against what was happening in the industry in the 90s with grim, dark, violent heroes. And what has been the major criticism of the previous DCEU, at times, the focus is a bit too grim, dark, and violent, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it could actually lend the opportunity to reframe those traditional heroes in a more traditional light, contrast that with, hey, we're not going to be so grim, dark, and violent anymore, and spring the story forward wherever that story is going to go.
I think if you got to do something different than what was before with DC,
Yes.
this DCEU, number one. You also have to do something different than what Disney did with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think if you just start, if they start with if they take the MCU plan with the solo films and then slowly build, and there's cameos and then there's crossover storylines, and you build up to this big confrontation. That's a little bit been there, done that as well. And
yeah, and it might just present too long of a logistical timeline for what Warner Brothers Discovery wants to do too. And from all indications, James Gunn and Peter Safran are getting the reign to tell the story they want to tell. But there's always studio things, right? Hey, we don't want a 10-year plan of $400 million movies. We want to turn this thing into a big blockbuster success. And it's, to some extent, the toothpaste is already out of the tube, right? Like, good luck squeezing that back in. It's not going to happen. There's an established universe. If they're going to continue telling stories in a connected universe, which is clear they're going to do outside of the Batman, then you need to play with the pieces that are already on the chessboard. And if you were to go backwards and say, hey, now we're just going to focus on individual movies and then do a big team up, and then back to individual and a connected storyline and a team up, we might just be a little bit past that phase already.
Sure. Would you love to see, like, literally the Kingdom Come version of Superman at the center of all of this?
I would like to see Superman at the center, and whether that's the Kingdom Come version of Superman, I don't know. So now we do have the benefit of what's happened in the DCEU with a extended gap in Superman appearances. You do have a bit of an opportunity to say, maybe following Justice League and the character's poorly planned death, take a little shot there in BVS, and then coming back in Justice League, maybe Superman has been absent in that world as well. We headless cameo in Shazam, and now at the end of Black Adam, you could say the character's been away from the world a while, kind of contemplating what type of hero he needs to be, comes back, confronts what's become more violent, and even play that into Black Adam in some ways. A superhero that's not necessarily a hero and is kind of willy-nilly with taking lives. But I don't know that I need to see an aged Superman that's, has the Reed Richards gray temples in the whole deal. But I definitely I would need to see it based on Superman, because that's the core element of the story.
I would like for him to be older, and I would absolutely love to see the Kingdom Come version of Batman.
Oh, absolutely.
I just think it is different than anything we've seen before with Batman. And it's still very much Batman. If you read Kingdom Come, Bruce Wayne is still very much Batman, even though he has to wear an exoskeleton because of the, years and years of Batmaning, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it takes a toll.
Yeah, and the fact that he's still patrolling Gotham with the Bat bots, and he puts on that badass armor suit, and he's still able to Batman do some Batmaning himself, besides just the Bat bots. So it's just, I just think it's different. Wonder Woman is still Wonder Woman in it. A lot of the classic heroes are very true to themselves. So I don't think wouldn't be some, just drastically super different,
right?
No pun intended, than what the core aspects of these characters we know. It's different. It would be a different thing,
Well, and I think you have the opportunity to, regardless of whether they age up Superman a bit. And I always thought, the one thing, and it's minor because I love how the story's told, I never really understood why Wade aged up Superman the way he did, because essentially Kryptonians, once they reach maturity, they don't age for centuries and centuries, if not eons and eons, depending on what radiation level they're exposed to, and that's getting pretty nerdy. But you could keep a little bit older of a Superman because
Yeah.
Cavill himself is, older by over a decade than when he was cast in the role. But you do have the opportunity, depending on what they're going to do with Keaton's Batman post the Flash, like that fits right in. Like that's,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, completely age appropriate for the Batman in this story, right? Like that could be an excellent segue. Now, you don't have to use the Keaton Batman to tell this story. I think it would be, I would view it as a bit of a missed opportunity if they were going to go in this direction and they've got Michael Keaton at the right age to play this Batman. Like that could be phenomenal, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I'd really enjoy it.
Where you stand on bringing back actors who are in the DCEU, as opposed to just if they're doing something new and get a new DCU that Gunn is referred to it as, just totally recasting and starting from scratch. What's your take on that?
I think depending on the story they want to tell, it could become a necessary evil, and that might be an overstatement. We're not talking good and evil here. It's not the actual comic book battle. This is just making movies. But I could see how that could be sort of a necessity to get fresh and move forward. I think in the short term, it creates more problems for the studios just with fan reaction and online hubbub and everything else. But if they have, the internal desire to say, let's post Flash or post whatever point, this is a brand new reborn DCU as opposed to the DCEU, and creatively they feel the call to recast these roles, I'm not going to like hit the streets with my picket sign. There'll be some folks that I'm sad to see go. I would like personally to see Cavill continue as Superman after just seemingly getting him back, whether that was The Rock flexing his muscles or not. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I would miss her, but I know she's spoken at different times about potentially being ready to move on. So if they need to do it, fine. There'll be some faces I missed, but I'll live. Yeah.
I think going that route, the only thing, I don't want to say it's tricky, but I'm curious, like, you got Gunn invested in the Peacemaker, and, that's technically part of the old stuff. And you got another season of Peacemaker coming. So we'll see how it all pans out. I am of the opinion, start from scratch, just go from scratch. And the movies are good. People show up, it'll be the fans more than anything. They're the ones that'll carry on about continuity and being confused and whatnot. But we see this kind of stuff. I mean, really, the source material, it happens all the damn time. So,
I mean, you get different artists on different books. All of a sudden, Gary Frank's drawing Superman, and he looks just like Christopher Reeves. And then, somebody else is on it, and it doesn't. Just kind of looks like Superman, but it's still Superman. And I think there's a way. And again, it's a lot of, keep mentioning the Flash. There's a way to introduce a reboot of this universe in the movies through the story you're telling and not confuse the audience if that's a concern, right? If that's a concern for the continuity sticklers and to get a certain segment of fandom sort of off their backs, even if they're angry about it for good. Like you could just, through the story you're telling, say, this is a total reset. The story we're telling includes a reset of this universe through the occurrences that happened in the old iteration of it that are bringing forth a new version of it. DC did it. How many times, how many different crises have we gone through? And rebirths have we gone through? And everybody who reads the comic books knows, until they decide to tweak it again, this is a different version of what we saw before. You can do the same thing in the movies. It's not an impossible task by any means.
And just because this is Batman on film, like I said, I would love to see that Kingdom Come older version of Bruce Wayne Batman in this new iteration of the DCU. And I think it's just so, it would be different than anything we've seen in live act before, and there's a pretty good chance there's going to be a little overlap between the end of the Batman, Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson trilogy and this new DCU. And I think they want to go, they want everything more streamlined. So having such a vastly different version of Batman than Pattinson or Christian Bale or anything we've seen before would probably be, I think, maybe a smart move. Just, for on the fact of, when it comes to like continuity and not confusing the audience and all that nonsense. So
yeah,
just my
it's
opinion.
a clear differentiator. You've got young Batman in The Batman. If you have an older Batman in some sort of Kingdom Come inspired series of movies or project, then you really are taking the confusion out of the mix. And maybe even if it's not Michael Keaton, which I think again would be great.
Yeah,
there have been a number of actors over the years that have been close to getting the role or rumored or fan casted for the role that now are too old to be the prime cinematic Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like I just looked it up, just out of curiosity. I couldn't remember how old Kurt Russell is.
Yeah.
He's actually older than Michael Keaton. That's a name that, it's been danced around the Batman franchise for years. Whether
it didn't
it's
seem
Batman
like he would be, but okay.
or Gordon. Yeah. He's a year older. But there are other folks that people have said, oh, they'd be a great Batman. And now they're just too old for the role. Well, maybe they wouldn't be too old for this version. That could be pretty fun.
Yeah. I will say I do trust James Gunn. I'm a huge fan of the Suicide Squad. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, even though it's Marvel. And not that I'm dissing on Marvel, but Marvel's not my, I'm not a Marvel guy overall.
You've got your home base.
And I'm glad. I was very happy to see him to get this gig at DC. It would be at Warner Brothers for DC films. So
yeah, Gunn hasn't done. I haven't really seen anything from Gunn that I haven't enjoyed. I've liked the Guardians movies quite a bit. I thought the holiday special they just released last week was fantastic because I was laid up sick with the flu. That was like Friday came. I'm like, oh, I have something to watch to, get my mind off of how horrible I feel for a little bit. And Peacemaker was fantastic. I also the Suicide Squad I think is arguably one of the best comic book movies to come around in the last 10 years. I thought it was just phenomenally well done. So yeah, to have someone with his creative vision and talent sort of, and love of the source material as the co-lead. And I think that was also very smart, not to go on a different tangent, but to have somebody who's a filmmaker and a creative paired with a producer that knows how to get movies made. Yeah, it's very tough, right? Kevin Feige is a unicorn among unicorns, somebody that grew up a fan of the material and also grew up producing movies and learning what it takes to make movies successfully. That's a popular mall to think that DC or Warner Brothers was just going to find their version of that was silly. This is a nice counter approach to that, if it could be viewed as a counter approach.
Well, we shall see what happens with this new DCU with James Gunn and Peter Safran. Of course, I've said it. It's not a secret. I'm kind of like look at that as like it's gravy. Okay, it's gravy, and I will support it. I'm not super excited for it yet, but I am super excited for the Batman universe, and that's kind of like I'm looking forward to see where that goes. And that's like I've said, hey, I trust Gunn. I get I just they'll make it like Marvel, do something new. I'll get on board at some point, but just don't mess with the Batman and Matt Reeves right now. That's some of the best stuff they've done. Along with the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker in a while. So,
well, it's just DC fans can be just the whiniest little babies in the world. And I look at it and I think, man, we're getting the best of both worlds right now. If you like a more realistic solo Batman, guess what? You're getting that, and they're investing it in a major way. Not just with 3 movies or whatever ends up being, but all these different television programs and projects that are being spun up that are getting, the real deal prestige treatment. Meanwhile, they're building out where this connected version, more fantastical, the whole cast of characters representing, the DC universe more broadly as a separate thing. So like, I don't know, what do you like? Pizza or wings? Well, I like them
Yeah.
both, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm a happy guy. Just, you know, have a little patience, have a little faith, and then we should have good stuff to come for a while here. It's exciting.
I would hope, and I would, if I had a chance to talk to James Gunn, I would say, hey, I get it with the connected universe. I get it. Okay. But don't stop doing stuff like Joker and the Batman. If you want to have quote unquote black label DC films from Warner Brothers.
I wish they'd just do that already. I wish
Yeah.
they'd just say, hey, we've got a different label and we can market it this way.
Yeah.
And, you know, avoid some of the silly conversations of, you know, when is Joaquin Phoenix's Joker going to meet Robert Pattinson's Batman? Like never. Just avoid some of that entirely and just say, hey, we want to have the DC universe that shows up in DCU, and then we want to have DC Black Label, and this is where we're going to take a chance on smaller projects or more creative approaches to characters, you know, building off the success we've had. Just put it out there. I don't know why there's anything to lose there. That you know, allegedly was the plan at one point, and then it just never happened. I think it'd be a smart move.
I'm with you. All right, then we'll move on out of here. Garrett, what would you like to plug?
Oh, hey, I have got you know, some comic book reviews up on the website if you want to go back and look at those. Actually, I was reviewing Justice League for a period of time, and I just got a trade of some of the issues that I reviewed, you know, about a year and a half back, which has been fun to revisit and read on a little Black Friday sale. So if anyone wants to take a look back in time, and also Batman, Superman issues that I picked up as well that I've been revisiting. So if anyone else wants to revisit those, I've got reviews up on the website. You can check out the episodes I host of the Batman on Film podcast right on this very same podcast feed. And I've been really busy this fall with fantasy football. I've got a fantasy football podcast that I host with my friend Matt Renshaw. We're called the Dynasty Dads. You can find us at Twitter at Dynasty Dads. And if you want to interact with me, I'm at Garret Wato. That's at GarretWato.
Sounds good. All right. For me, just go to Batman on Film. You know, you can find me there. We'll say if you want to support Batman on Film, you want to become a patron, and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Batman on Film. If you want to advertise on BOF, advertisecast.com, advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. And of course, this podcast, several others are all part of the Batman Podcast Network. You can find that at Batman on Film proper and check out all those shows as well. That's all I got. So it's been a long time since we did a podcast together.
It has been a while. I was thinking of that when we were talking earlier this week about getting together today. I'm like, I haven't actually been on the mic with Bill in quite some time.
Because you're the host of the original podcast. And so I usually, since I have the social hour, I kind of back away from that to let the other guys, you and the other guys do your thing. And it's a different type. The shows are different. Each one of our little shows, they
got a different feel to them.
So check it out. I will say got the chapter by, you got to come on chapter by chapter.
That's what I really want to get on. I missed out on the entirety of the Batman with scheduling and everything else through the late summer and fall. But Batman 89, near and dear to all of our hearts. I particularly love it. So I definitely need to get on that because I'm always excited to talk about that. Of all the Batman movies, for a while, The Dark Knight was probably the movie I revisited the most of the Batman library. And as years have progressed, I still love The Dark Knight. It's tied. I think I always say tied for my favorite movie of all time. That and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is kind of a wild combo, but whatever. But Batman 89 is probably the movie I've continued to revisit over the years. And recently, like if I'm out cleaning the garage, I got a TV and stuff set up in the garage, I just throw on Batman 89 because I know it beat for beat. I know every line. So if I get busy cleaning up a certain area, working on a project, I don't have to intently watch it, right? But it's there with me. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I need to get on that.
We spun off, this is the social hour, and we did the Batman chapter by chapter. And then I said, this is so much fun. Let's just spin this off to its own podcast and do all the Batman films. This is Batman on Film, So I'm trying to, I want to get all the guys involved as much as possible. We got the I had to think when I say this, Batmanimation.
Batman Animation.
So that's fun. And the rumor has it there's going to be another one spinning off of one of the podcasts that's going to be called the Batman Game Club podcast with I think our friend Ryan Haas and your fellow BOF senior contributor and Michael Ramey are kind of going to head that up and talk about all the various Batman games.
Our video game boys. That's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of things you revisit from the past, the Nintendo game loosely based on Batman 89 is one of the most challenging Nintendo games.
I played the hell out of that, man.
I played it
in the day.
I've got it. I still have my original copy, and I've got another copy on an EverDrive card that kind of has every game on it, and that's one that I will play. And I've introduced my boys to it, and they're like, "Dad, this is hard. This is really really hard." I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is intensity in 10 cities, man. There's no way around it. This one's a tough one to beat." But there's a ton of good Batman video games. The one I'll be really excited for too is Batman, was it Dark Vengeance or Vengeance on the GameCube? I played the heck out of that one in my older teen and early 20 years.
The one that based on the animated series?
Yeah, animated series.
Mr. Freeze and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you see a lot of different villains in that. It was the only one I played. I know there was another one they produced for the GameCube that I never played. I never got around to that one, but that Dark Vengeance got a lot of play time.
There's a lot. See, that's the whole thing is that there's so many Batman games other than the Arkham games to discuss. Old school games. Like that Batman 89 game from the original 8-bit Nintendo system.
And then Batman. Oh gosh. I want to say it was Return of the Joker, but I don't think that's it because I was thinking of the Batman Beyond movie. But there was a kind of a follow-up game on the NES. It was one of the last NES games produced that was the Joker. I'm just going to call it Return of the Joker. That was like, it pushed the Nintendo to its upper limits. Like almost 16-bit quality was kind of how they advertised that one. Also very difficult, and that's a gorgeous game to look at, particularly for aged hardware at this point compared to what they're producing today. How good they got that to look on little old 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System was pretty impressive.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's get out of here. For Garrett, I am Bill. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Batman on Film Social Hour. And now, so Rachel will take us out and plug some more stuff. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the BOF Social Hour, Jet's official vlog and podcast on Batman on Film. Follow Jet on Twitter @BatmanOnFilm. Follow the BOF newsfeed on Twitter @The Batman on Film. For Jet and everyone at BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film, established in 1998.